This morning on BRN, sports betting has families diverting household savings to gambling. Joining me now to discuss this, Scott Baker is an associate professor of finance at the Kellogg School of Management. Scott, so great to see you. Thanks for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
And we're going to be talking about sports betting. This is the second consecutive week we're talking about this from a different angle. Professor Baker, based on the study that you and your colleagues have done, it seems like many Americans are taking money, household money, and putting it towards betting when maybe it should go to other areas of their budget.
Yeah, so we found that this increase in sports betting after legalization was pretty sharp, and that this has kind of redirected some dollars away from other elements of the budget. And I think there were some thoughts that maybe some of this the dollars going to sports betting were just coming from other aspects of like the entertainment say portion of the household budget, reducing going to movies, or instead of going to a game you might bet on a game instead. But kind of what we found was actually that there were some components of the budget like the entertainment spending that actually increased alongside the dollars flowing out to sports gambling. And so these two forces, the increase in spending on gambling and also the ancillary spending, increase in spending on kind of food and restaurants and entertainment spending, cable spending, really put more pressure on some other aspects of households' budgets. And one that we specifically looked at was kind of investment in more traditional equities. So if you're thinking about kind of one allocation of risky investment in equities versus another in kind of sports gambling, it's really drawing from some of the more long-term maybe retirement savings or other sorts of investments, and putting that money into not only sports gambling but also maybe going out to the bars to watch the games that you're gambling on.
Yeah, I wonder, Professor, if I know there are disclosures, and I think there are regulators working with the different private sector betting platforms to kind of educate people. But I wonder if there's an educational element to this. We talk often on this network and elsewhere about financial literacy, and I wonder if that dovetails into this conversation, like, hey, you've got credit card debt, or hey, you can go to the movies, but the movies are guaranteed. You winning on sports betting, maybe not.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things in that. I mean, one is that we show some reallocation of household budgets, in response to the legalization of sports betting. But it's not to say that this should necessarily be banned or changed. We're trying to provide some information, to policymakers and to households about what the downstream impacts are. But if households are going into their sports betting with kind of a fully rational view of their likelihood of winning and losing, and it's just really fun for them, as it is for many people, maybe it's okay that they're reducing some of their other savings to pay for a new, very enjoyable activity that's now legal. I think you kind of bring up a really good point that some of this is about education or literacy, or just the transparency of some of the prices or likelihoods of winning. So especially some of the more complicated bets and some of the bets that people really like to place are sorts of like parlay bets, where you're betting on multiple things happening all at once, and you can get 1,000 to 1 payoff. But those are often the most kind of mispriced, in the sense that they have the best margins for the betting sites. And so you might think that some households are making particular bets without a full understanding of the likelihood of kind of winning. And so in that sense, maybe there does need to be a little bit of extra disclosure or kind of a better understanding. Maybe that just comes with, a longer period of time of this being legal and kind of normalized, where people have a better understanding of, their likelihoods of wins and losses.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of all this, in my opinion, and I'm not a professor at all, just anecdotally, I think the more you educate people, the better consumer they're going to be. And look, it's fun. You can follow. I know I don't bet per se. I played slot machines. That's pretty fun to be able to and I've lost every slot machine I've ever played. I've lost, but that's fun. And I can imagine following your favorite sports hero or basketball player, NFL player, that is fun. It actually allows the person to be kind of participatory in the gaming process, an active participant, I guess.
Absolutely. And I mean, my co-authors and I are kind of interested in sports betting and engage in some sports betting ourselves. So it's not to say that is a moral failing or anything like that. But we kind of, and that's part of the reason we did this study, is to kind of better understand, just what happens after sports gambling is legal. So there's definitely an entertainment component that is obviously very enjoyable and very valuable to a lot of people. We partly just wanted to provide some information for policymakers to say, look, there are a lot of states and the federal government who try to, through the tax code or just through public service announcements or through education, try to get people to, save more for kind of their longer term future, save more, participate more in stock markets. And this kind of legalization is maybe counteracting some of those messages to some extent. It might still be worth it to have this legal, but there is this tension between those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's the follow up to this, Professor? What's the next step in the research? Is it just as it expands, more years get tacked on in terms of history, you have more data, and therefore you can see the overall impact, or are there other questions that you and your colleagues want to answer?
Yeah, so I think there's a few directions to move in. One is that there are a couple other teams who've been putting out some research very recently, as well as this is a kind of fast moving phenomenon, about some of the other impacts. So there were some other researchers who had data from credit registries where they could observe things like credit scores and bankruptcies and debt delinquencies, and they also saw some negative effects there. So kind of across a different element of the household budget or the household financial picture, there's some other work being done. We're looking, as you said, at kind of extending our sample window. So, as more states legalize in different ways, as we have more of a post period of legalization, we can get some better understanding of, whether some of these effects are short term or long term. We saw kind of continued growth over time in the amount of sports betting going on within individual and within states. So this was still growing, but we haven't found the peak or really plateau yet. And the other place that we're trying to dig a little bit more into are some of the individual level results. So, who are the individuals or who are the households who seem kind of most susceptible to this? We can match in maybe some data on local advertising and things like that, to kind of better understand who, not only the aggregate effects of this, but some of the kind of household specific effects as well.
Yeah, well, it's certainly going to be, you're going to be growing your data set and obviously have more data. And look, if I guess I'll take it at that, we make it as a network. If people start betting what the topic of the show is going to be, and so then I'll say, boom, I've made it. Maybe I can get a endorsement from DraftKings. Who knows? Professor Baker, I'm just kidding, folks. Professor Baker, we're going to have to leave it there. Great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. Great research, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Absolutely. Had a good time.
And don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse, for all the news in one place. Details at our website. Until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe. Keep on saving. Don't forget, roll with the changes.